When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books and charact'ry hold like rich garners the full-ripen'd grain, when I behold upon the night's starred face huge cloudy symbols of a high romance, and feel that I may never live to trace their shadows with the magic hand of chance, and when I feel, fair creature of an hour, that I shall never look upon thee more, never have relish in the faery power of unreflecting love, then on the shores of the wide world I stand alone and think, to love and fame, to nothingness do sink.
Okay, good, good. Do it again. Do it a little quieter. Just.
Okay. You can hear us okay, Robert?
I can hear you fine.
Okay.
I recently bought a new phone, and...
Okay, yeah, we just got this speaker phone, and wanted to make sure it sounded okay on your end, so that's good.
Okay.
Okay. When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books and charact'ry hold like rich garners the full-ripen'd grain, when I behold upon the night's star face huge cloudy symbols of a high romance, and feel that I may never live to trace their shadows with the magic hand of chance, and when I feel, fair creature of an hour, that I shall never look upon thee more, never have relish in the faery power of unreflecting love, then on the shore of the wide world I stand alone and think, to love and fame, to nothingness do sink.
Okay. Now, this first...
I have a pencil, Joe.
When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain. What does that mean?
If when he has fears that he may die, or he may die before he has he's created using his pen through his poems, through his work, he's accomplished what he wanted to do through that.
Yeah, before he has fears that he'll die before he's used up everything that his brain has to offer.
Yeah.
In terms of poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books. Is it piled or piled?
I have it as like a contracted word, so it's just piled. P-I-L.
Before high-piled books in charact'ry hold like rich garners the full-ripen'd grain. What does he mean by that?
He's before he's his all the things that he has in his mind, all these ideas and poems and stories that he has in his mind, before he gets them into books. In charact'ry, I took it as being like the characters of the text. So the books in charact'ry hold like grain in the storehouse. So his books packed with these words are packed like like grain in a storehouse before he's accomplished this.
Okay. When I behold upon the night's starred face huge cloudy symbols of a high romance, and think that I may never live to trace their shadows with the magic hand of chance. What the hell does that mean?
I think these moments that he finds of inspiration, like he says, the night's starred face. So he looks out into the sky and sees in the clouds or in the stars. Like we say with we give names to constellations and stories to constellations. So he looks out and sees these possibilities of stories or ideas or poems. And like he says, huge cloudy symbols of a high romance. This beautiful story that he wants to tell, but he knows that he might not live to be able to, like he says, magic hand of chance. So whether he can write down the words which somewhat capture this idea he has or this inspiration that he has, that he might not be alive to try to do that.
What did you mean, magic hand of chance?
The way that I think about that is, from a visual artist perspective, is when you see something that's beautiful or a certain scene that you want to sketch it down real quick. And you have a minute just to quickly, with some squiggly lines, get it. And sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. And I could see it to be the same with words, is that you see something, whether you're looking out into the night sky and you have an idea, you see a beautiful possibility of a beautiful poem or story, and you quickly write down in words what this idea is. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. So it's this magic hand of chance. That's the way that I've thought about that.
Okay. And when I feel fair creature of an hour, that I shall never look upon thee more, never have relish in the faery power of unreflecting love, then on the shore of the wide world I stand alone, and think, to love and fame, to nothingness do sink. What does he mean by fair creature of an hour?
I took it as sort of a continuation of the previous one, that there's this moment where you're inspired and you have this idea in your mind and you're attempting to capture it in some way, but that you're in that moment and it can be brief at this short space of time where you're inspired by what it is you see. Because he goes on to say that I shall never look upon thee more, never have relish in the faery power of unreflecting love.
So what do you mean by faery power?
I think of a magical power. This scene, this same moment in nature which has inspired him, has awakened in him something. That this power is that, is
magical.
This is magical power. Yeah, magical.
magical, but like awe-inspiring kind of.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And
And on the shore of the wide world, I stand alone and think to love and fame to, and think to love and fame to nothingness to sink. What does that mean?
That I thought of it in the fame. I think of in terms of his. We know of Keats, or we know of writers and poets through their work. So he's in this moment where he's realizing he might not be alive to capture these moments, to leave something, these works behind. So we were talking about this. Joanna and I were talking about this earlier. What it exactly meant. I guess that last couplet, we didn't quite arrive at a fixed meaning, because if the last quatrain before that, it's not him talking about his writing of something, capturing of something. He's just talking about being in the presence of something. This fair creature. That has this fairy power. So he's not even going to be. It's not even a matter of capturing it with words. It's just a matter of being in the presence of that. So with the couplet, when he realizes that it's not that I'm going to not be able to capture this. It's not. I'm not being in the presence of this fairy power, this fair creature anymore. And when he realizes that, then fame and love to nothingness. That's not, that being alive and being inspired in this way is what is really important, at least it seems at the end to him, and to realize he won't be there to be in these moments anymore. That fame and everything else, the leaving, these books and the things that he wants to capture and write down, but even that becomes nothing.
Then what do you think is the significance of think? That on the shore of the wide world I stand alone and think to love and fame to nothingness to sink.
Yeah. Yeah, again, Joanne and I were talking about this earlier. We were sort of looking at this concept of unreflecting love, what that meant. And we thought about it in terms of it's something that you love without having to think, reflect upon it. It's you love it without having to make a decision. You just do. So if there's these moments where Keats feels before some scene or this cloudy starry night, he feels total love and joy for it. He doesn't have to think about loving it, he just does. So it's unreflecting love. And when he realizes that he won't be able to have this anymore, then on the shore of the wide world he stands alone and thinks. So he's, I don't know, disconnected from that, and he's just he's not caught up in the moment anymore. He's separated from it, and he's alone. And
so you're saying there's the think and unreflecting are counterpointed against each other.
Yeah. Yeah, because in these moments of fairy power, it's not something he's thinking about. It's something he's just inspired by. He doesn't have to think about it. He's just carried by that moment.
Although it's funny, because what he's bringing up in this sonnet is that when those moments are overtaking him, when he's like being caught up in this whirlwind of passion for this great moment, because he has fears that he may cease to be, he is being forced to. These moments are prompting him to reflect on the fact that he may not have them anymore.
Yeah.
So it's those. It's funny, yeah. Those unreflecting moments are actually prompting him to
reflect on that he may
to
cease
reflect
to
on
be.
the fact
Yeah.
that he may not have them.
Yeah.
And on the shore of the wide world I stand alone and think. I mean, it seems to me that in this context, standing on the shore of the wide world, it means he alone of all the people in the world. And think, to love and fame, to nothingness do sink. Because it seems like in this couplet at the end, it's diametrically opposed to what he was saying before. So there's a turn here.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if what he's saying in this couplet is that, and after reflecting on all of these things, I'm standing alone. I'm alone in the world, and I'm thinking that these things really don't mean anything.
Yeah.
That they lose significance in the thought that almost that the fear that you have of dying, of ceasing to be, is really insignificant.
Hmm.
I mean, just because I'm thinking that if there's a turn here, then the turn has to be counterpoint to the thoughts
that came before, yeah.
Came before, yeah. So I'm wondering if that is what he's saying. I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to write all of the poetry, use my brain to its full potential. I'm afraid I'm not going to be, my poems will be in books, all over, hundreds and hundreds of books, and that I won't be able to look out at the night sky, and trace clouds, or even that I won't have a chance to look at you, fair creature, whatever that is. Fair creature of an hour. It could be a person, it could be a flower, I don't know. Never have relish in the faery power of unreflecting love. A fairy power seems to have a value. And I think that it's not necessarily a good thing.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I take relish. You relish something. It's something that you I would say appreciate.
Yes, you can relish things that aren't necessarily good for you.
Hmm.
There are a lot of obese people walking around the world that relish things that aren't good for them.
That's true. That's true.
But no, I'm just sharing my thoughts because
Sure.
I'm trying to figure out the poem.
Sure.
And I'm not sure know, one thought that doesn't have a modulation into an ironic statement at the end. That,
Yep.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, where he's building and then realizing, and then maybe, in a way, I would say contradicting, but yeah, he makes a break from maybe a certain line of thought from before.
And that's why I
a realization, maybe. Yeah.
Word think has a special significance.
Yeah.
Because when you have unreflecting this or fairy power in this, and you're not really thinking. You're being consumed by the moment.
Yeah.
A sense perceptual kind of thing. But think is the opposite of that. You know what I mean, Brian?
Yeah. No, yeah.
Jay, do you understand what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah.
So, I think the turn here, I think there is a turn here, and the turn can only be counterpointed against what was said before.
Mm-hmm.
Try it again, Brian.
Okay.
Because the other thing is, what is the point in feeling that you may never, I mean, we never really accomplished anything that we really want to accomplish in life. I mean, even, you know, even Brahms died wishing he had more to contribute, you know, and yet he contributed so much, and so many people have contributed a lot, die saying they only started, they feel like they just started the real accomplishments. So it's kind of it's a fear that really doesn't get you anything. It doesn't help you in any way. Feeling that you may cease to be because you haven't done this and you haven't done that. Well, yeah, that's true. You haven't done that. When you die, you will have missed out on the opportunity to do something more. But that's just the way of life. That's the way it is. Anyway.
It's also the case,
Brian.
I was just going to say, it's also the case that the fear itself will stop you from accomplishing things.
Yeah.
Like
What does he? Do you think he also maybe says, "And think, till love and fame to nothingness do sink"? Does he realize that he was thinking more in terms of all these great things that he wants to do, but he realizes that he was, like maybe he had just he was making great imaginary strides in his mind, but wasn't really accomplishing anything just by thinking that way.
Fantasizing.
Yeah, fantasizing. He realizes when thinking about it, reflecting upon it, that I was just letting myself go. That this is just an idea of people loving me and of fame, and I realized that that's just a nonsense way to think, or a nonsense way to I can't let myself go this way because that's nothing. That's just a fantasy.
Yeah, that's sort of what I'm getting.
Okay. Yep.
Let's try it that way, Brian.
Okay. When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain.
Hold on, Brian.
Yep.
Those two lines belong together.
Okay.
Cease to be is not the end of the thought.
Okay.
That's the way I'm hearing it.
Okay. When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has teemed my gleaming brain, before high-piled books and charact'ry hold like rich garners the full-ripen'd grain, When I behold upon the night's starred face, huge...
Hold on, Brian. Okay, so, when I have fears that I may cease to be before this, and before this, and then, so there's, I need a slight change in tone on these befores, because they're different things.
Okay.
And then another one on when I behold.
Okay.
Okay.
When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has teemed my gleaming brain, before high-piled books and charact'ry hold like...
Now, Brian.
Yep.
You have to employ some dramatic suspension so that we can follow.
Yep.
When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain. Try to employ these. Try to employ some dramatic suspension so that we can catch up. They're dense thoughts.
Yep.
Okay.
When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books and charact'ry hold like rich garners the full-ripen'd grain. When I behold...
Hold like breath. Don't forget the breath. Any suspension comes with a breath.
Yep.
That's why you have to be very careful that you don't take breaths in the wrong places because they sound wrong.
Yeah.
Dry breath have breath, right? So the most, the simplest one I think is after that. When I have fears that I may cease to be.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, I don't think I was doing like false suspensions. I was just doing an upward inflection and not really breathing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books and charact'ry hold like rich garners the full-ripen'd grain. When I behold upon the night's starred face huge cloudy symbols of a high romance, and know that I may never live to trace their shadows with the magic hand of chance. And when I feel, fair creature of an hour, that I shall never look upon thee more, never have relish in the faery power of unreflecting love, then on the shore of this wide world I stand alone and think, to love and fame to nothingness do sink.
Okay, that was better. So, it's interesting that he says that I shall never look upon thee, and when I feel fair creature of an hour, that I shall never look upon thee more, never have relish in the faery power of unreflecting love. If you know anything about Keats, he was madly in love with a young lady in England that didn't return his love, really. And he was heartbroken by it. In fact, there's evidence that Keats never really consummated a love affair with anybody, with any woman. So he probably died a virgin. He was, I think he was 28 when he died. And so, he was sick. He was a sickly person. of an hour, I mean, if you're in love with someone that only gives you an hour, once a day or once a week, oh, sure, you can come by and see me for an hour. And you're living months and months and months looking forward to this fair creature of an hour. And all you get is that hour, and that's all you ever get. And then if you stop to think about it, what really am I getting from this, seeing this, having this experience for 1 hour and nothing more? And then it struck me that on the shore of the wide world I stand alone. Seems to me he's saying that he's saying that out of the whole world, seemingly, I'm the only one in my thinking process, not my fantasies, but when I stop to think, not being consumed by fantasy or fairy power or anything else, then all these things suddenly sink into nothingness. And it seems like I'm the only one in the world that really thinks. Because everybody else seems to be consumed by the fleeting, momentary pleasures of the world. But I don't think he means that literally, that he's the only one. But do you see what I'm getting at, Brian?
Yeah, yeah.
It just came to me in this last go-through that you did. And that's why I think the think is counterpointed against unreflecting, fairy power, magic hand, chance. To love this seeming love that he has for this fair creature of an hour, and this thing about fame, because remember, his peers were Lord Byron and Shelley, and many of the other lake poets, Wordsworth and several others, that were much more famous than he was. And in fact, he submitted one of his poems to a famous poet, older gentleman, established already. I think it was Wordsworth, who didn't encourage him at all. And he took it very badly. But he must have recovered because he kept writing, and his writing improved more and more and more. I think the poem that he submitted to the person was Endymion, one of his first. His
attempt is at like an epic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Wordsworth called it a pretty piece of paganism. So I think that there is a turn here. And we have to hear that.
Do you think that he's in that moment of where he's caught up in fantasy, or do you think he's commenting his previous ones are more of him looking at society in general? Like if he makes the break, has he caught himself?
I think right now is the moment when he has made that discovery.
Oh, okay.
That all this fantasizing is insignificant. I think that's what he's doing. I think it's calm and rational.
The whole thing? Or...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, I do.
So he's not getting more and more caught up into the last one and then catches himself. It's more of he's counterposing this first series of thoughts to the end, which is what he...
It's like someone who has believed that they saw a ghost. And for years and years and years they believed they saw this ghost. And then they realized what they really saw was a white sheet that was in the closet, blah, blah, blah. And everybody in the family thought that he saw a ghost, and everybody believed. Then he sits them all down and says, "Look, I was wrong. Let me tell you why." You know,
Mm. Yeah.
because first of all, blah 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 blah. So it's very calm and rational, I think, so that we can hear the thoughts, and you don't have the added burden of trying to achieve these high moments of emotionalism. Try it again.
Okay.
Calmly, rationally.
When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books in charact'ry hold like rich garners the full-ripen'd grain.
Hold on, Brian. So you're in a very narrow series of pitch range.
Yeah.
More bass.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to have to get Joe to reteach me some exercises here. We did a little bit, but
What you're talking now, what you're just saying right now is much lower than what you started off with.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think
3 or 4 notes lower than you started with.
Yeah, okay.
So allow yourself to use those notes that are available to you.
Mm.
Remember, there's your real voice. There's your real voice, and it's in your first register. And then later, you develop more of your real voice as you get more and more comfortable going up in your second register and on, right? But your first register is your real voice. That's the one we use mostly every day. That's the one that people are accustomed to hearing from you.
Yep.
And people that are comfortable and using their real voice, a lot of people don't. They go through their whole lives not using their real voice. Because they're just not aware of this concept of pitch range and vocal species. Okay?
Yep.
So use the bottom notes that are a part of your vocal species. Okay, here you go.
Yep. When I have fears that I may cease to be... Let me do it again. When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books in charact'ry hold like rich garners the full-ripen'd grain, when I behold upon the night's starr'd face huge cloudy symbols of a high romance, and know that I may never live to trace their shadows with the magic hand of chance. And when I feel, fair creature of an hour, that I shall never look upon thee more, never have relish in the faery power of unreflecting love, then on the shore of this wide world I stand alone and think, to love and fame, to nothingness to sink.
That was better. I think that you can simplify it even more. And And maybe the dramatic suspension after that in the first line is not a good place. It gives it a kind of an abrupt, it's almost like you hear a bump in the road. But I have fears that I may cease to be before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books in charact'ry hold like rich garners the full-ripen'd grain. When I behold upon the night starred face huge cloudy symbols of a high romance, and think that I may never live to trace their shadows with the magic hand of chance. I mean, stay on the thought. Forget about, you've got to get rid of any kind of tune, any kind of melody. Stay on the thought. Try it one more time.
Okay.
Take a breath when you need it. Don't worry. There's no, take a breath when you feel like you need it to make clear what you're about to say.
Okay. When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books and charact'ry hold like rich garners the full-ripen'd grain, when I behold upon the night starred face huge cloudy symbols of a high romance, and know that I may never live to trace their shadows with the magic hand of chance. And when I feel, fair creature of an hour, that I shall never look upon thee more, never have relish in the faery power of unreflecting love, then on the shore of this wide world I stand alone and think, till love and fame to nothingness do sink.
That was much better. Now I could really hear the thoughts. I think when you review all of this, Brian, this is the one that you want to work from.
Okay.
And you can make better choices as far as your breathing points, your dramatic suspensions, and also your pace. It's a little fast. One of the things that Jerry and I were starting to discover before we had this long hiatus from the drama work that we were doing, it's really easy to speed up, to go, to get ahead of the thoughts. You don't want to get behind the thoughts, but you don't want to get ahead of them either.
Yeah.
So you have to stay right in the pocket. And that's what you have to find. Because you rushed the second before. You rushed most of it, actually. You tended to slow down. I think maybe right around that I shall never look upon thee more. Somewhere around there, you started to slow down and try it one more time. Slower.
Okay.
Just give me the thoughts.
When I have fears that I may...
Getting too high.
Yep.
And I have fears that I may cease to be before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books in charact'ry hold like rich garners the full-ripen'd grain. When I behold upon the night's starred face, right? Easy. Nice and easy.
When I have fears that I may cease to be before my...
Get off of the I.
When I have fears that I may cease to be before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books in charact'ry hold like rich garners the full-ripen'd grain. When I behold upon the night's starred face huge cloudy symbols of a high romance, and know that I may never live to trace their shadows with the magic hand of chance. And when I feel, fair creature of an hour, that I shall never look upon thee more, never have relish in the faery power of unreflecting love, then on the shore of this wide world I stand alone and think, to love and fame to nothingness to sink.
Okay, well, Brian, it's okay. Just have to go back and keep working on this because it's it's about 30% tune, 30% unrealized technical choices, and only 40% of it is what I'm hearing.
Okay.
Clearly. So go back and review this, and because when we were starting to investigate was in these sonnets. The most important thing is that you understand what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Once you understand what you're saying, then conveying those precise thoughts is now the mission. And if you just go through it in a monotone, you'll start to hear where inflections are needed. So it's like singing a familiar tune in monotone, and then you hear it clearly where the notes go up or down and are needed to convey that song the way you know it. So doing it that way in a monotone really makes you hear the thought. Your mind starts to hear the thought. And then from there you can make choices as to how best to express the thoughts that you are now clear about. Okay, and you can even, the old technique of taking a breath and going through it on one breath as far as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Will also help. But the main thing is to get it clear in your head what exactly you're saying. And that will also help you find the right pace. Take it as slowly as you can. Take it as fast as you can. In between there is the right pace. So even pace is not arbitrary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so bring this back.
Okay.
Okay, good.
All right, thanks, Robert.
Thank you, Brian. Also, Brian, don't forget that a series of monosyllabic words has to be dealt with. and I have fears that I may cease to be like all monosyllabic.
So, Robert,
they're kind of like,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
They're kind of like half notes all in a row, or even whole notes all in a row. But you have to decide when these half notes become 3/4 notes with a quarter note added, or a half note and a half note, and you know what I mean? You have to divide these whole notes so that they don't sound monotone or rhythmically redundant, right?
Yeah. So I have to make, and you know, in that sonnet they're all over the place. I'd say a good half of it, if not more, is monosyllabic.
Yes.
So I have to figure out how to navigate each.
Yeah.
The rhythm of each.
Yeah, because this is iambic pentameter. It's the same as Shakespeare's sonnets.
Yeah.
So the same rules apply. I mean, even if it was Shelley or, you know, a different rhyme scheme or a different rhythmic structure, you always have to keep in mind for whatever rhythmic structure it's based on, when it goes off of that, right? When it creates a rhythm that doesn't naturally belong, then you have to be aware of that.
Yeah.
And deal with it. Right?
Yeah. With you said speaking in a monotone. You just would read it out loud say it out loud in a monotone and just.
When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books in charact'ry hold like rich garners the full-ripen'd grain, when I behold upon the night starr'd face huge cloudy symbols of a high romance, and think that I may never live to trace their shadows of blah, 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 right?
Yeah, so you sort of strip anything, it's just one color, and you see where you need to change it. Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.